Adding an image is a little bit different than what we've done before because we're taking an external piece of media and we have to load it into the sketch and then display it. So we have to add a separate function to do this, which will load the data from the image, and then we'll be able to use the pixel data contained in the image and display it in the sketch. So obviously we need an image to do this with. So I'm gonna just search on Google for an image. So I'll open a new tab and I'll search for, let's search for a cat image. If we're gonna make a meme, could be good to have a cat. So I'll go over to Google Images. So when you're using images for projects, you should make sure that you have the rights to use the image. You should not just like grab the first image that you see. What you can do, the easy way to make sure that you're using an image that has a license is to go to the tools over on Google Image Search. There's also a lot of other websites where you can go that have images available under different licenses. But if we go to Google Image Search and go to Tools and go to Usage Rights, we can go to Creative Commons Licenses. And so this will filter the image results for images that have some type of Creative Commons license. You've probably learned about licenses in some of your other courses like MMP 100 or maybe your design courses. But what a Creative Commons license does is it sort of dictates the rules through which somebody can use the image. Of course, this doesn't apply if you make your own image. If you take a photo with your phone and upload it, or if you make a drawing and use that, you own your own content. But when you're looking for images on the web, you have to make sure that you're allowed to use the image that you're using. And so Creative Commons is an organization that has different sort of generic licenses that people can use with different specifications. So for example, some licenses say you have to give attribution to the original creator. Some licenses say you can't make commercial work. And so you just have to look at what the license is before you use it. So when I switch to Creative Commons licenses in Google, you'll notice that certain websites tend to come up. Wikimedia Commons is a common one. This website Pexels is another one that has a lot of Creative Commons images, and they have their own license that they apply to those images that's very similar. So it's not exactly the same, but it's a similar concept. Wikipedia. This website Animalia is actually new to me. That's maybe a new website. Pet Society. So there's lots of different. There's still plenty of options for cats. I think this guy's kind of interesting looking. He looks very sort of contemplative and a little. It says tired 20-year-old cat. And so you can see if I go to this page on Wikipedia. Wikimedia is a really good source for a lot of images because they give you options for different images sizes that you can download. And we can see the license information. So this is originally from Flickr. It was published in 2009. The author is Dmitry Didi Torturat, and they've released this under a Creative Commons attribution license. It is specific to France. I don't know if that means that you can't use it in the US, but you can click on the license and it'll give you information about how it works. So attribution is pretty common. Attribution, which has the abbreviation BY, just means that you have to give credit to the original artist. So we can do that in our sketch by including the name of the artist and a link to the original work in our comments. And you can include it in your blog post as well as if you want to. So we can see this attribution. You must give appropriate credit, provide a link to the license, and indicate if changes were made. So it's pretty straightforward. If you're using images that you didn't create for any creative projects, whether it's for class or for your own projects, you should make sure that you're using images that you have a license to use. You can also buy images. There's plenty of websites where you can just pay for an image and get a license that way. But a lot of media is released under Creative Commons or public domain licenses, so you don't have to pay money for them. Okay, so we'll use this image and we'll link to this page. So for this cat image, I'm going to use a relatively small copy of the image because my sketch is only 400 pixels by 400 pixels. So if I used like this gigantic 2000 by almost 2000 version of the image, it wouldn't really fit inside the sketch. Maybe if you just want to show a little bit of it, that would make sense, but I'm going to use a smaller version. This one is a little too small, so I'm going to go with this one here. So this one is 638 by 480. So I'll click on that, and then it opens the image in the browser. And what I want to do is download this, and then I'm going to re-upload it into P5. You could reference this link as well. But if you reference a link and then the image gets deleted or the link changes, then your sketch won't work anymore. So it's slightly better or slightly preferable to save the image and re-upload it to P5. So I can right click and save this image as, or I can go to Chrome and go to, I guess it only has save page as. Okay, so yeah, we can right click. You could also just drag and drop the image onto your Finder. But I'm gonna click save image as, and I'll save it in my downloads. And so now if I go over to the Finder and go to my downloads folder, we can see that image here. It has kind of a long name for the file name, so you could rename it if you don't want to have to type all of that out. It's not too crazy, but I'll just do tired cat. And so we're going to upload this to P5. So to do that, I'll go back to my P5 sketch. I'm going to open up this file browser button here. And then there's a link right here, or a button right here to upload files. So I'll click on that and click upload file. And then I can click here to open up the Finder window, or I can drag and drop. So I'm going to open that up, and it's going to copy there. So let's put some information in our comment about the image. So I'll just say image used, and then I'll link to the image here. And I'll say by, and I'll just copy the author's name here and paste it there. Okay, so to use the image is not like our text or our shapes or other graphics that we've been drawing in P5. The image is its own file that has all of the image data saved into separate pixels with colors. So we have to load that data before we run the sketch. We could try to just draw the image, but if the image isn't loaded, then our sketch won't run. So to load the image, we're gonna use another function called preload, and what that'll do is it'll load any assets that we wanna use, like images or audio or video, before the setup function runs. So before we try to draw an image, we'll make sure that the data is loaded. So we're gonna use this function preload. And for this to work, we're gonna have to be able to communicate between our functions. And so we're gonna use a variable to save our image data. So this is a little bit of a preview of what we'll be talking about next week. Next week we'll spend a lot more time on variables, but for today we're just gonna use a very simple variable. So I'm gonna make a variable above all of my functions. And so to make a variable, I just use VAR, which stands for variable. And a variable is sort of basically just like a shortcut or an abbreviated name or a nickname for some piece of data, some information that we save on the computer. So I'm going to call this variable cat image. And we name our variables just like we name our functions. We use camel case, so if there's more than one word in the name of the variable that we want to use, we capitalize the second and subsequent words. So I'm going to put a semicolon here. I'm not actually going to put anything in this variable yet. I'm just going to declare that this exists. So this is a variable declaration, and we're going to use this to save the image data. So the reason that we have to do that is because we're going to preload our image, but then we're going to draw it in the draw function. So we need something that can be used in both functions. And to do that, we need a variable that exists outside of the functions. And we'll talk more about variables and how they work next week. So I'll just say to be used by both preload and draw. Okay, so now we have our cat image. But when we use var, the keyword var to declare it, we have already set it up. So we don't have to say var again when we want to use it. We just use the name that we created. So to load the image data, we're going to say cat image and then equals. And then we use a function called load image. And then we put in the path to the file that we want to load. So we don't have any folders in our project, so we don't have to put any folder names here. We just put the name of the image itself because it's part of our main folder. So I'm going to put tired_cat.jpg. And if you want to, you can rename the image. So if you click on here and click this little drop down, you can always rename the image if you want to make it something smaller or easier to type out. Okay, so we've loaded our image, but it's not going to do anything. We've just loaded the data. But to actually draw the image, we have to use the image function. The image function kind of looks like the text function because it has an X and Y position, but it comes after the image data. So to actually draw our cat, we can go to the draw function, and we use the image function, and the first argument is this cat image variable that we loaded our image data into. So we'll say cat image, and then I'm just going to draw it at 0, 0. We'll see that the default for the image is that it draws from the top left corner of the image. So if I move the X, if I want to actually move the image over, I would actually have to go into negative. I could say like -100, and we'll kind of move the image over into the frame. And I could do -100 on the Y, or maybe -50. So the image is actually bigger than the canvas. So to move it into the canvas, I actually have to use negative numbers because we're going sort of beyond where that top left corner of the canvas is. Sir, do you have a question? What? You're good? You don't have a question? No? Okay. All right. So we can also resize the image. So just like a rectangle or another shape we can use, we have some optional parameters. So after the position, if you add in another number, we'll resize the image. It disappeared because we're all the way in the negative values. So let's go back to 0, 0, and we'll see the image again. But it's kind of squished, right? Because the image is not, it's not going to resize the Y for us. So we can resize, we can take 100 by 100 and we can get a square, but the image isn't exactly square. So if you want to be able to resize the image, it might look kind of distorted. You could Photoshop the image so it's in exactly a square, or you could change, these values. Like I could make 200 for X and 100 for Y, or I could try to get the right proportion. We can also fit the image to the canvas if we want a background. And it doesn't look too distorted, but it is a little bit squished because we know it's not a perfect rectangle. So you can resize the image if you want to, and you can move the image around. You can also draw the image multiple times, and you can draw multiple images as well. So let's say we wanted to put another image in here. I'm going to demo that real quick just because that can be kind of confusing. So in case you want to put another image, let's add a mouse into our sketch. So I'll go to Google and search mouse, and then go to images, and I'll go to usage rights and go to Creative Commons. And let's find a mouse that we can use. This one's pretty good. So this is on the Pexels website. Pexels has like a default license that gets applied to everything. We can see that license somewhere. It just says free. Oh, here it is. Okay. So yeah, this is the Pexels license, and says all photos are free to use. Attribution is not required, and you can modify photos and videos. There's a few things that are not allowed. So you can't just sell a copy of this image without doing anything to it. There's a few other things, but it's a pretty permissive license. So I'm going to save a link to this image just in case I forget where it is, even though I don't have to do an attribution. So I'll go back up here to my comments, and I'll put another link here. I'll change this to images used. Okay, and so this one, I'm going to download. I'm going to download a small version of it. So I'll do the small version. This website is a little goofy. I can't find the, or I guess I just click on small and then download. Okay, no, I got the big version of the image. That's okay. I'm gonna Photoshop it a little bit anyway. So I don't want this whole image. I want to do a couple things. So we can do some Photoshop. I assume you guys have used Photoshop a little bit. But I'll just show you guys something that you may want to do. I just want to remove the mouse from the background so I can add the mouse into my sketch without all the background stuff. So when I open up in Photoshop, I'm going to see the mouse with the layer here. I'm going to unlock that layer. It's going to be locked by default. And then I'm just going to use this tool up here, the object selection tool. And if I draw a little box over the mouse, it should find it pretty well. Sometimes it doesn't work perfectly. You can always edit it if it doesn't get everything you want. But that looks pretty good. I'm going to just click on that, and it'll make a little selection. And I'm going to make a mask. So to make a mask, I just click this little rectangle button with a circle inside of it. Okay, so now I have the mouse, and I'm just going to crop the image. So I'm going to hit C or grab this crop button and crop it down a little bit. And I'm going to keep this transparent background when I export it so I can put it on top of the cat image that I have. I'm also going to make it a little smaller. So I'm going to go to image size. And it's very large. I'm just going to set it to 400. So it'll be about the size of the sketch, but I'll probably make it smaller than that. So I'm going to hit OK. So there's my mouse. I'm going to go and export this as a PNG with transparent background. So with a JPEG, we can't have a transparent background, so we need to use a PNG. And this looks pretty good. I'm going to export, and I'm just going to save this as mouse.png. So there we go. There's our mouse with our transparent background, and we'll be able to layer this on top of our cat. So I'm going to go back to P5. I'm going to upload another image. So I'll grab this mouse.png. And so when I load another image, I need another variable, but I don't need another preload function. So our functions can only have one version of each function. So I don't want to copy and paste this whole thing. I just want to create another variable and add another line to load that image. So I'm going to close my sketch files for now. And I'm just going to add another variable for my mouse image. And then in the preload, after the cat image, I'll add a new line, and I'll add a mouse image. And this is mouse.png. So now I can add in another image. So I just use the image function again, do the mouse image, and let's put this guy at maybe x is 20 and y is 200. And so now we've got the mouse. He's very big, so let's make him a little smaller. Let's do like 50 by 50. Okay, he's a little squished, so we might need to do 100 by 50. And so now I've got a little mouse with the cats. And another thing I can do with the image is I can draw multiple copies of the image. So if I want to have a lot of mouses or mice, I can make another mouse. And if I update the X and Y, I'll have a copy of the mouse. So I can draw these images as many times as I want to, depending on what I want my sketch to look like. Let's move him back a little bit. So we can fill this cat's space with a bunch of mouses. There's a few other things we can do with images, but those are kind of the basics. You can tint an image. So if you want to change the color of an image, you can use a tint. I don't recommend using this a ton because it is kind of processor heavy. So for example, if I apply a tint, like a red tint to the image, notice that if I put it down here, it applies to the whole image because it overwrites the default. The default tint is just, everything is full color. So if I apply a default tint here, my images will look normal. But then if I tint with full red here, you can see it amplifies all the red pixels and it takes out the other colors. So tint is a fun thing to play with images. If you use it a lot, you'll start to see the performance of the sketch gets a little worse, just because it's doing a lot of processing to do that while it's drying. But that is something that you can kind of play with. I'll put default tint here. All right. So I think that's most of what I want to cover with images. Any questions or anything you guys want to review? All right. I'll just